Bonjour mesdames et messieurs, in this video I will show you my best tips on shooting night photos. Bonjour mesdames et messieurs and welcome to episode 55 of my photography, Lightroom and Photoshop tips. My name is Serge Ramelli, I'm a French photographer living in Paris, and last week I showed you how to take a panorama inside of a church with no tripod. This is the final result. And you should check it out if you have some time. I think you will learn a couple of good things. In this week, I will give you my best tips on shooting night photos. This is something I get a lot of requests on. So here it is, my best tips on shooting and taking night photography.
Bonsoir mesdames et messieurs. So, I wanted to give you my best tips for shooting photos in the night. And the tip number one is pretty simple and most of you know it. I mean, some of the people that view the podcast are brand new to photography, so I'm more experienced. So I'm sorry for the one which are more experienced, but I'm sure you can get something out of it. Tip number one and most important one, shoot on a tripod. Why? Because you want to shoot at 100 ISO. Why you want to shoot at 100 ISO is you want to have the best quality possible photo. In case you took a great photo, you want to make a big print, and you want as least noise as possible. So if I press I on my Lightroom, I'm going to get the infos about this. So this was shot at 0.6 second at f20, ISO 100. So with ISO 100, I mean, it's still a pretty dark photo, and usually night photos are dark. You know, if you, one thing you should know is that if you leave your aperture on, the photo is going to get brighter and brighter and brighter. I usually shoot always manual when I shoot at night. So what I do is I go into the AV mode. I put like around f20, and I will explain you why later I do so high aperture. And then I look at the seconds, usually, you know, half a second or whatever that the AV mode gives me. And then I put this back into manual mode, and usually it's too much brighter. So then I get the speed to go a bit faster, so there is less light to come in, so the photo is darker, because often cameras for night photos, they make it too bright. So that's one thing. So tripod, tripod just to be able to shoot at ISO 100, very important. Tip number two, details in the sky. I want to tell you a little story. When I started photography 8 years ago, one of the first thing I did is I took my tripod and my camera, and I went right around sunset in Paris, and I was like totally into it, and I shot till about 1 o'clock in the morning. The thing is, after 1 hour after the sunset, there was no more details in the sky. The sky was just pure black. And some of the photos were nice, you know, but I showed them to a professional photographer a few days later, and he says, you know what? It's true, your photos are nice, but every single one of them could be nicer if we could see some details in the sky. So that's my trick number two, is shoot right before sunset, at sunset, after sunset, whatever you want, as long as you have some details and contrast in the sky. Nicer the light in the sky is going to be, nicer your photo is going to be. If you shoot when it's pure black, you can get the best monument or the best whatever in the world. You know, it's usually, you know, clouds and sunsets and lights, and, you know, they add drama. So that's my first tip. Shoot when you have details and a nice sky. Tip number three, close your shutter speed. Now, f20, why in the hell am I at f20? For three reasons. One, whenever I shoot water, I hate how the water looks. If I try to, you know, if I have a high speed, I try to have a long exposure, because I want to have, if there is water, that it's a bit silky, a bit smooth. If there is clouds, I want them to stretch a little bit, and you will see that in a later photo. And so that's two reasons. And the third reason is that if there is any lights, I want to get these little stars that you see here. You cannot see so much, but on some photos, when you go above f13 or above f14, the lights of the city will become nice stars. And that's something I really like. So that's the three reasons why I advise you to have long exposure. And of course, that's why you need to have a tripod. You know, for example, this is, well, it's not such a long exposure, but I'll show you another photo. But it's still a half of a second, which is pretty slow. I mean, it could only be done on a tripod. Okay, tip number four, use a remote. Use a remote, and the reason why you use a remote, and I'll show you in the second photo, is because you can, I just find it's a lot easier. And I want to show you something. on Amazon. If you type remote Canon 5D, I'm here on Amazon, you have this wireless remote. I love this wireless remote. I bought one like this, it's like $19. And one of the reasons I love them is because I never touch my camera, but the other reason why I love them is for very long exposure. What I do is that I put a Polaroid filter on my camera, and the Polaroid filter is going to make the clouds appear better. Okay, that's one thing it's going to do, but it's also going to get even my shutter speed even longer than usual. So for example, if I take this photo, look at the exposure, it's 49 seconds. Now 49 seconds is not possible in manual mode. You can only go to 30 seconds. So what I did is that I went to f22, and then I had this remote with me, this $19 remote. So I press once. When the timer is on, the remote is going to work. So you press once to start the photo, and you press a second time to stop the photo. So I pressed once, and then 49 seconds later, I press stop. But that only works in B mode. So you put first in B mode, you put at f22, you put your polarizer on, even if you don't have like an ND filter. And if it's a bit dark at night, you will get long exposure. And look how silky the water is, and look the clouds. How they are very stretchy, So I like that. That's why I always go for long shutter speed. Okay, you don't have to do it in B mode if you don't want to go over 30 seconds. But in any case, long shutter speed is good at night because it will get the clouds will be nicer, the water will be nicer, and the lamps will be nicer. Okay, tip number 5. So tip number 5 is shoot in the sun. Yeah, I always try to shoot in the sun because even if the sun is about to disappear, the sky around the sun is always nicer. And if you have the chance to see the sky, the sun, it will even be nicer. So that's basically my 6 tips. Now I want to retouch this photo from start. This is just a raw file. I'm going to press I to take this out, and I want to show you how I'm going to retouch this photo because I want to show you some interesting color contrast you can do. So first I open up the shadows. Okay, now on night photos I don't necessarily bring down the highlights. Let me press the Alt key and see what happens. If I bring down the highlights, it could be interesting. You see, I don't want anything to be burned in the sky. So when you press the Alt key, if anything is burned, it's going to appear as like red or yellow dots, which is the case here. You don't want that. You want something to be black because it's going to get details in the sky, and whenever you print, the sun is going to look nicer. Okay, so the highlights, I'm not necessarily going to go the whole way. Actually, I could. And then I'm going to do the Option key and take my white and bring my whites up. Yeah, just a little bit. And my blacks down. Now, sometime on night photos, I get my highlights to go a bit higher up. Yeah, like this one. I think it's just too dark. I'm going to brighten up the whole photo. Now, okay, so that's the basic retouching. Maybe add a bit of contrast, something like that. Now, one thing that's very important on night photos, and I think on any photos, is color contrast. Now, this doesn't have a huge color contrast. And one thing that I like to do when the sun is in the photo is to make a contrast between the blue sky and the sun here. So what I do is I put the white balance as daylight. It's going to make the photo a lot more blue. And so already it gives like richer blue color. So now it has a good contrast with the sun, but I want to increase that. So for this, I'm going to take the brush and I'm going to get my temperature and tint to go at 76, 75, like the whole way to the right. Okay, and now very important, you have to get flow and density at 50-50. What that's going to do is that whenever I'm going to brush, it's going to brush just a little bit. And it's going to brush what? It's going to brush color. Okay, clarity, I don't know why it's not at 0, but okay. And exposure at 0. All I want is brushing color. So here I am, but I'm brushing very little, just a little bit of warmy color, around the sun, And I do it bits by, small by small. And if you want it to be a bit stronger, you can maybe add a bit of tad of saturation, not that much, but check it out. Before this brush stroke, after the brush stroke, all I'm trying to do is get even better contrast between the sky, and the bottom here. Okay. Now, let's see clarity. Clarity could be interesting on this one. Add a bit of clarity. It makes it a bit darker and less saturated. Let's see if I can add some vibrance. No vibrance. No. I think that the sky is blue enough. Now I want to get this even warmer, so what you can do is go into the HSL, go to saturation, and just add a bit red, orange, yellow. Just make it pop a little bit more. Okay, and yeah, that's about it. Now I love this because it's still a night photo, but it's got the mood. You know, it's got the mood. It's got the mood of. It's got a good mood, you know, but it's still a night photo. So now sharpening, noise reduction. Look in the dark parts if there is noises, and well, this one was a bit dark to start with, so yeah, there's a bit of noise. So you know how I go about noise. If there is a bit of noise like this, I'm gonna go around like 30 on the noise. And now sharpening, there was not so much noise, so sharpening I'm gonna get like around 90. So very sharp photo, but one thing you need to make sure whenever you do sharpening, you see how the sky is getting grainy. Press the Option key and use the masking tool until the sky goes completely dark. And there you go, and then the sky is not grainy anymore. Okay, so that's kind of cool. Now I'm just gonna crop this photo a little bit, make it a bit more, bit more panoramic, because I'm a big fan of panorama. And let's add some more interesting light. I think it's kind of boring, so let's go here. This is this new function that I love. It's a radial filter. So I'm going to press the Option key to reset everything. I'm going to create a little radial thing here. Okay, right now nothing's happening. I'm going to boost the exposure, and what's going to happen is the exposure is going to boost everywhere except in the circle. I don't want that. So I'm going to click Invert Mask. And there, okay, you have some kind of light there. Now I want to make this a little bit bigger. I want to get this here, maybe around, oops. Let me delete that. Let me just get back on this. Okay, I'm going to add some exposure. I'm going to add some contrast. And I'm going to make this a bit bigger. Now it's a bit too obvious. So when it's a bit too obvious, you can, on the feather, you can feather even more. So it's a bit less obvious. All I want is that it looks like that the light is casting something there, you know. And then once I like this, I'm going to press Alt and Command, duplicate it. Okay, make it much smaller. So Alt Command just duplicates, you know, I went through the hustle of getting everything right. Okay, now I've added like 2 lights here. Okay, maybe just let's a tiny bit of light here. Okay, make it slightly bigger. Okay, yeah, just to make it a bit more interesting there. Okay, and I'm gonna be maybe gonna copy that over here. Make this a bit bigger. I'm sorry. Just want to add a bit and something like that. Okay, maybe take some clarity off. You know, I don't like the water to be too precise. No, it's a bit too much. Okay, yeah, just add a bit of thing there, maybe a bit of yellow in it. You know, you can just add anything you want. Yeah, just add a bit of yellow. Okay, so that's about it. That's the retouching I would do. So let me show you the before and after. That's the before, that's the after, before, after. So I like to play with the contrast of the light. So that's my best tip about shooting in night. Now I want to show you this photo. This photo was shot as not using an ND filter, but as I said, you know, 49 second at f22. So that's kind of cool. You know, I look at the clouds, how they go. You know, I put the chair there so that I had contrast between fuzzy clouds and between a very neat, you know, sharp chair. You know, contrast is not just about darkness and lightness. It can be about colors, and it can be about what is soft and what is hard. So simple composition, but night photos. So this is my best tips on shooting night photos. And before I leave you guys, I want to show you my little teaser about my workflow program if you want to follow along and see how I shoot the photos and how I retouch them and go much more into deepness, and if you want to get these raw files. Also, don't forget that you can go to my website. My website is photosearch.com, and let me take this out. And the three things I sell the most is my workflow package, which you will see the trailer on. The Art of Black and White by Jean-Michel Bertz. I have an amazing review on that. If you're into black and white, you must check it out. and my full Lightroom and Photoshop tutorials. Now, the full Lightroom and Photoshop tutorials is very different from the workflow. The workflow is really how I work every day in Lightroom and Photoshop, and this is really to learn the software. In any case, it's always a bit the same thing, you know. I give you the raw files, I show you, but more you will see examples, more you will get better. You know, it takes a lot of shooting and retouching and shooting. You know, I've retouched thousands and thousands of photos, so you know, after I started getting it through my skull, you know. Anyways, last but not least, if you want to get the raw file that I used tonight, you can go here to raw file for podcast and share this podcast with the rest of the world. You know, you will get right now it's not on because the podcast is not on. You just click here on more info, and then you will get the opportunity to share this episode by liking it or whatever, and you will get the raw files to be able to retouch that night photo if you want. So that's about it, guys, and let's get back to my room.
Bonjour mesdames et messieurs, and welcome to this full workflow course. My name is Serge Ramelli, and I'm going to take you to Paris, I'm going to take you to Israel, and show you exactly how I work from shooting, compositing my photos, to post-processing. Many people ask me, but you know, what settings do you use on your camera, or how do you do your framing? That's why I wanted to show you how I take the photo and how I retouch it. Here you can see some of the projects we're going to be doing. We're going to be doing panoramas, long exposures. We are going to do some very night photos or early morning photos. You will see exactly how I use Lightroom and how I use Photoshop to get the results that you can see here. So come and join me in this training class.
Okay guys, so I hope you liked that tutorial. It was fun to do and I love taking night photos. One little favor I want to ask you is that if you can share this podcast to your friends on Facebook, on Google+, on Twitter, that'd be very nice. I now have over 55 free videos, mostly on post-processing and Lightroom, but I'm sure it could be of interest of many of you friends. I thank you very much for being there every week, and I'll see you next week.